Welcome back to the Handlebar Podcast. As you know, this is an honest conversation type of podcast where we talk about faith and practically following Jesus. Before we jump in, there are a few quick things that we want you to know about. First, we love it when you ask us questions. So if you have one, submit it on our website at thehandlebarpodcast.com. Next, if you love the podcast, there are a handful of ways that you can share the love and help continue to support what we do. The first way is through sponsorship. This is a good opportunity to get your message out there via our podcast. Go to the contact form on our website and let's connect. Also, we have merch. It's a great way to support what we're doing and spark fun conversations. If you didn't know, Elissa has a solo album, Wearing a Blindfold and Running, and Sarah Beth dropped a worship album, Foolish Offering. These albums are so good. You can stream it anywhere you listen to music. And lastly, Aaron has an incredible book out called Big Jesus. It has wild stories about growing in your faith and walking with Jesus in everyday life. It's so good. Okay, let's jump into today's episode.
Welcome back to the Handlebar Podcast. We are here. We have the Millers back with us for another episode. Today we're going to jump into dating. We're going to talk dating. So
Part 4, huh?
Dating Help, Part 4. Maybe we'll title it something different. You'll see. We got into the first dating question we ever did, which you guys have seen this, but it wasn't really a question. It was a comment. Dating Help.
Dating ... help.
And there was actually an email. I don't know if I've told you this, but this is cool to say. I got an email from someone who listened to that episode. That episode's come out now 3 years ago. Someone listened to that episode, and whatever we talked about, I don't remember what we talked about in dating, but they took the handlebar, they took the advice, they got into a relationship, they started dating, they got engaged, and they had just gotten back from their honeymoon, and they attributed it all the way to that episode, which is just really cool to hear the fruit of where an episode impacted someone. So I hope these episodes are encouraging you. I think of the last Dating Help Part 3 we just did. You can go listen. I think that episode's called Make Dating Normal Again. We had Chase and Lindy has her song about tear up your list. She starts singing about throwing away your list and trusting the Lord. And so these have been really just fun conversations around dating. So we're going to jump in to dating today. Talk about it. I'm gonna read two questions that they don't really go together, but they're both in dating, and I feel like they could just be a fun starting point for us in dating. So, are we ready?
Let's go.
Okay, the first one comes from L, spelled E-L. She is 24, from Seattle, and she says, I want to date, but I have never been pursued or asked on a date. Dating help. So I'm going to take it that you are an active listener and you've heard that language of dating help before. And then the second question comes from Josie.
How old was she?
She was 24, from Seattle.
Okay.
This next one comes from Josie. Josie is 17 and lives in California. And Josie says, what are important and good boundaries for when making out with your boyfriend? What are important and good boundaries for when making out with your boyfriend? Josie, 17, California. So you have one person who's saying, hey, I want a date. I've never been pursued or asked on a date. You got another person saying, can you help me with boundaries as I'm making out with my boyfriend?
Oh, don't say it. She might not be making out with her boyfriend.
Well, she's asking for boundaries for when she is.
We're not going to assume, okay?
All right.
Well, how would you define making out?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I would define making out, tongue in the mouth.
Yeah.
Mouth in the tongue.
More,
and
just
spit.
say it this way.
You
Okay,
said it.
just
You
say more
said
than
it.
just a kiss. It's like
Yeah,
it's more than just a kiss.
It's not a peck. It's
Yeah.
not a lip high five.
And it's probably not in public.
And it's probably not in
And
public.
it's probably after the hours
Probably
of
in
10
the car.
p.m.
It's probably somewhere secret. So, I mean, how would you define making out?
I think
that
you
a good
did a
answer?
pretty good job.
All right. Well, let me set a timer, and then we'll jump in. We'll start.
Oh, we already
talking
jumped in. Let's be
dating.
honest.
Dating help. So, anyone want to start us off?
Yeah, Lorisa does.
Oh man, it doesn't. It's just.
I think it's an
dating,
interesting question. The first one. I think let's go from dating into
Now that you're here.
now that you're here. What do you
That's
do?
good.
But as a female, I think that's a valid thing that she doesn't feel like she's being pursued. She wants to be pursued. I think a lot of girls are probably in that place. So as a female.
As a female, yeah. I mean, I feel compassion for her. I forgot your name, but I feel compassion for you. I think, there's like, for me, there's the spiritual side of this. And then there's like the practical side. And, I think one of the things I'm most passionate about because it's part of my testimony is how that longing that females have for the attention, the affection of a male. And it's both natural and healthy, and then it gets unnatural and sick and like an endless pit. Kind of like the lust of the eyes is what is it? How does it say? It's never satisfied. Sometimes that's also true for females with like the affection or the attention of males. I'm not saying this about you, whoever sent the question, but I can say that for my own life, my own story, that there was a place of not being content or satisfied, feeling like my value, my worth was so tied to that it controlled my life, controlled my decisions, what I thought about, what I wore, where I went, who I spent time with. It was kind of like an obsession. Similar, I would say the way that men can struggle with physical lust, women can struggle with this. Not that women can't struggle with physical lust, but I think that this is like an ailment of female makeup that truly it sounds, I hesitate saying it because it can sound like a spiritual platitude, like Jesus can meet that need, but he does meet that need. He does satisfy like deep female longings for companionship and love, and I think that I feel like when a woman is satisfied and content in the Lord, she becomes more attractive in the natural to men. And she knows who she is. She's able to care for herself physically. She's able to like be feminine and be desirable, but not be, slutty for lack of a better word, like attention seeking. So
yeah,
those are deep waters I just shared, but
It's good.
You preached on this at the women's conference. Jesus,
yeah, I did.
Really,
yeah.
really good.
Mm-hmm.
Shameless plug there. But we've worked with young adults since 2004. And I am always amazed at the Lord's timing and how he always seems to have the right person for, especially if they haven't been pursued. I've seen a lot of girls that have waited and wrestled through this, but inevitably he comes.
Yeah.
There's a fit, and just to not be hasty, but to wait, and to know that the Lord sees that desire. I think I read a statistic: 93% of single people want to be married.
Yeah.
It's a desire in a lot of young people. And so how to entrust that to the Lord. I had a friend tell me when I was single and frustrated, I had dated a couple of girls, but just hadn't worked out. And he mentioned Genesis 2, where God put Adam to sleep and he brought Eve to Adam.
Yes.
And there was something internally for me that had to be put to rest. And it doesn't mean that I didn't, when I saw Lorisa, I pursued her, but that something had died. Something had found resolve and peace internally, that God was going to bring that person. And
And wouldn't you say, like, I'm thinking about the people, I mean, you and I are probably thinking about some of the same people that waited, and it was absolutely worth the wait.
Yes.
That settling ahead of time in your discontentment, going, seeking something out and making something work, I've seen that bomb, like, be horrible. But the ones who have waited and God brought, there was just an undeniable, amazing beauty and grace on it.
Grace on it, for sure. Yeah. So hang in there. Keep trusting in the Lord. Delight in him, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. And there's a real trust in that, especially if you're in your early 20s. Like, you have a lot of life left, and he's going to bring that person at the right time.
Do you guys feel that comes a point to where the waiting is fair game to become proactive? Meaning, I'm thinking of questions we've got. I didn't know if we would talk about this, but I feel like this is a great place to insert this question around, like, Christian dating apps. Or I'm thinking of a girl who this has been some time now, but she had, I guess, attempted to go on a date with a friend. They decided at the end of the date, no, let's just be friends. And then after some time, she decided, wait, actually, I think I want to give it another go. And the question she was asking us is it fair game for me to say something to him? So in that waiting, I think sometimes women can have a wrestle with, does the waiting get proactive? Does that make sense what I'm asking? Yeah. What's fair game? What's not fair game? Am I only pursued? Can I put myself out there? If I put myself out there, am I out of bounds? I just feel like sometimes in this conversation, it gets really slippery really quick for women on what to do. Curious if you guys have thoughts on some of that.
I mean, I feel like there is a way of communicating, I'm available to your pursuit. I'm interested in your pursuit, with the way that you interact with that person. If they already went on a date, and she wanted to, actually, I think, she could communicate that. But, like, 9 times out of 10, girls are weird, and we convince ourselves that, like, there's some reason why he's not pursuing me, instead of the reason being he just doesn't want to.
Right.
That we do that. And then we talk about it to each other, and we're like, he probably is just scared. He's probably just.
And then there's a whole
narrative. It's like, actually, he probably just would if he was interested.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's as a man, true. What would you say?
Yeah. We
when you like something, you go get it.
Most of the time.
And if you don't, you probably need to do some work.
Yeah, and I again, I think
it's true.
Depending on the details, but if you're in that person's life, and I think sometimes guys are just, they're getting something from that relationship, but not putting definitive definition around it. And so if he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I think there is a time for the girl to say, hey, I need to bring definition to this relationship. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If emotionally you're compromised in, man, where do I stand with this person? They're at my house, or gosh, I'm around them all the time.
You're texting me all the time.
Yeah, you may need to put some boundaries there for your sake. And part of that boundary is, hey, let's define this. I like you.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, and they may say, hey, I don't view this relationship that way. Well, that's definitive, and you can put boundaries up, which means that person's not going to come over to your house and just hang out, because that's not fair to you. And so I think there are times when you need to bring definition, especially if you're in proximity in a relationship, and he's not being forthright in that. I think you can, hey, state your intentions here, because you're doing the hokey pokey. You got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and guys can be wishy-washy in that sense. And I don't think that's fair to the female. And for her sake, I think bringing that boundary, clarity, definition is really important.
Yeah. I remember before Sarah Beth and I started dating, there was a conversation you and I had one time, and I think I had been maybe opening up about either wanting to date someone, or I can't remember if I don't remember how the conversation started, but it got on to dating. And I remember you said to me, run as hard as you can after Jesus, and one day you're going to look up. Do you remember what you said? And there's going to be someone next to you running just as hard after Jesus as you are, and you guys are going to make eye contact. That's what you said to me. And it's been true. It was true. I feel like I really buried my heart just in in the Lord and what I was doing, and then all of a sudden, whoa, you guys got a new nanny.
Yeah.
And it was true, so.
Yeah, and I think in that, this is another just practical advice, is if you're running zealously after the Lord and you look to the right and there she is, I think one of the things that takes time is for your relationship to develop. You have such a depth with the Lord. They have such a depth with the Lord. You look to the right, you realize you have that in common, which is the most important thing, but your relationship doesn't have that depth. It takes time to grow. And I think sometimes that's where we get in trouble by sharing too much. And those initial months, and we talk about the 3-month mark, but it takes 3 months to really know someone. And so to have a vision for that process, don't tell her you love her on week 2. Yeah. Don't let your words.
I did that, maybe. Aaron did that.
You did that?
Hey, but it worked. It worked for us.
Well, it was also like in the ER with kidney stones. It was a very heightened situation, and so he's just like, "I love you."
It was not smooth at all.
I mean, it's not a science.
I agree with you.
It's not a science, but sometimes my point is, don't let your words outrun the maturation of the relationship, because you put expectations and pressures then on that relationship, and it doesn't go through the process that it needs.
Yeah.
And so really to get a vision for that, like the 3-month mark is, I think, a really unique one where you've probably fought within 3 months.
Right.
Like you've had a disagreement. You've realized, they're not as cute. 3 months later, you're familiar with just, they're a person, and that's when the relationship really begins. Yes. That's when you start choosing one another. That's when you start seeing beyond the conflict and working through that. You learn to communicate, but it just takes time. So
okay, I'm thinking, Lorisa, maybe you can answer this one. Michael said you just preached about this, and so I'm curious. The question comes from someone who's 24. What happens for those that are listening? They're starting to get into maybe 34, and they're like, okay, I feel like I've prayed. I feel like I've waited. I feel like I've given this to the Lord. Nothing's happening. There's I see it on your face immediately of like the compassion of like, oh, that's tough. I don't know. I'm curious of what you would have to say.
You're still asking about online dating, aren't you?
I mean, we could go there.
You're saying.
Why do you want to know about online dating?
I mean,
it doesn't have to be there. I'm just thinking of the one that's gonna submit the question that says, "I've waited, but now can we do a part 2 to this?"
Yeah,
because
our community is actually full of women who are in their late 20s, early 30s that are phenomenal, beautiful, amazing women, and I don't know why nothing has like materialized for them, but. And do I think online dating is wrong? No.
Right.
I don't. I wouldn't say that. I think whatever you're going to do, you're going to do it in faith. And so I think it falls in that category. Like, can you do this in faith? Can you do that not desperate? Can you do that not settling? So can you do that? To me, it's not really that different from like going to a singles event at church somewhere. Like, it's like those that's a little bit like online dating.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're like surveying the room and it's like a mixer. It's just online. I don't think that's the worst. It's just, where's your heart? What's your aim? To me, and I just think that the speed at which people do that is a little scary sometimes. Yeah. It's like they online date and then it's like, oh, you're married. That's a little scary sometimes, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying if you do that, but you missed what you said first, which is waiting before the Lord, allowing him to put something to sleep, then it gets really wonky really quick. So, any thoughts before we jump over to Josie's question?
Like the other female hasn't said much.
No. I think that it's really important to not approach this from a selfish place. Of like, what can they give me? I'm, even physically, my physical body, the way the Lord made me is so desiring, intimacy, sex. Like, if you approach it from that place, you're going to be really disappointed because marriage isn't about what can I get it's, you said this to us, you're like, who's the first one to die? Like and so I think if you go into it with that perspective of like, okay, I'm going to be laying my life down for someone. I'm going to be going on this life journey together. It's not about, oh, I'm going to have a husband or the guy, oh, I'm going to have a wife who's going to make me feel this way and who's going to give me this and who's going to be intimate with me and whatever. You know, it's like the way you're approaching it is so important, I think. That was the only thought I had. It's like approach it selfless instead of selfish.
It just can so easily become an idol.
I
And
was thinking,
idols
yeah,
always
it's true.
disappoint us. And
Right.
we have all made idols out of other people and
Yeah.
out of the ideal relationship. And this is the place. I mean, like you said, we've been working with young adults for how many ever years. This is the thing that knocks people out, takes people away from the Lord.
Yeah.
This is the thing that derails people in their faith. It's relationships. So
Wow.
And if
the
it's-
Lord has to be first. And if you have to lay that down and let it die, he never promised you that right. I believe like it's a good gift from him, but it's not a guarantee as a Christian,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Dum, dum, dum. It's like the dum dum
You
dum
can
moment.
choose it.
Yeah, Paul has a lot to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah, he says
He-
it's better.
It's better.
Better not to. And that's what I'm thinking now. It's like if it's not the hope deferred, that maybe takes you out of, well, God, you didn't come through. I'm still waiting. Oh, God, you're not faithful. You know, you start to go down that way. Well, then maybe it's I am in a relationship, and now I'm making out. Now I need help with the boundaries. It's almost like the other side of the coin.
You always
that
used
could
to
take you out.
say, like when I was single or when I wanted a baby, or when you're like, the grass is not that much greener on the other side. And at first I was like, I don't think I agree. And now I totally agree because it's
Wow.
not,
Your grass is very green, I'm
I need to
sure.
go water the grass, I guess.
No. It's just not gonna fulfill the place that I was looking
You
to
need
be.
to water the
cannot.
grass.
No, it can't.
Oh,
It has to be
let's
in its
open this
right
up here.
place,
Let's
is
just-
all I'm
marriage
saying.
counseling moment.
No.
It's true. It's just a lot of people have to find out the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about making out.
Let's talk about it. Tell a
I
story
kind of
one
want
time.
Aaron to define.
We
it
were
again.
I don't know if we were engaged at the time. We were engaged at the time. I think we were a couple weeks away from our wedding, and we had gone on a date night. We went to the movies, and you're gonna get so embarrassed if you tell them this story.
I have no idea what you're about to say.
And on the way home, we
All
were
I
like,
know is I probably told you to
we were
stop
like,
and no.
let's pull over somewhere.
Oh
Well,
my gosh.
Sarah Beth and I start making
was
out in
the
the car.
Wait,
and
so you
We
start
are making out.
And we start
currently.
making out in the car.
Yeah.
In the story.
In the
We're in
story.
the car. We're pulled over in a neighborhood. We're making out. We had just left the movies, and I'm getting ready to take
He
her
said,
home.
"What would
We're
you
about
do
to
if
get
I
married."
pulled over right now?" And I was like, "Oh."
And I
Wait,
did. And
what?
now we're making out. But listen, so here's where the story goes. All of a sudden, lights turn on behind
No.
us, and it's a police officer.
And I'm like, "I told you."
And he walks up, he knocks on the car window, and he's got his flashlight. What's going
No
on
It's
here?
Derek Duke's
and
friend.
oh my goodness.
Imagine. He's like, "Hey."
And it was not my father-in-law, and he's like, "I want to see your ID. How old is this girl? How old is you?" He just starts
As
interrogating
he
us.
should.
And finally, he realizes, "Oh, you guys are in your 20s," and we're like, "We're about to get married."
He knew y'all were
And he
making
let us
out.
go, but you let me have it the rest of the night. You're like, "I'm not kissing you until we get married," and
And I didn't.
maybe I don't remember.
No,
but
I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
So-
I've never heard
That
this
was
story.
enough for me
I don't
to
know
be
that
like,
I've ever told this
"Ugh."
story.
Did
so-
he know y'all were making out?
I'm
did-
pretty
when
sure
he-
when he pulled up.
He kind of
I
caught
mean,
us off
we were
guard.
in the act when his
Wow.
lights came on.
Okay, the
So
act of
she's like
making out.
pushing me off of her, and
Wow.
Uh-huh. That's a true story.
true story.
Ooh,
So,
brutal.
So insert
The Lord said, "I'm gonna
boundaries
rescue
when it
you."
comes to making
Yeah.
out.
yeah.
We were a couple weeks out from getting married, and
That doesn't
we
make
made
it
and
right.
Come on, doesn't make it wrong.
Oh my
Aaron.
gosh. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
So Lorisa, we need pastoral wisdom here.
How can
For a
it be wrong when
generation.
it feels so right?
That's the question they're
Yes.
asking. How can it be wrong when it feels
Yeah.
so right?
I
It's
think
out of context.
the term making out is probably something that needs to be avoided in
yeah.
a dating
Yeah.
relationship
Yeah.
for for people that are fighting for purity. It's
Not
like
how
asking,
do we make out?
It's like asking how far can we go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you start down that path, you inevitably end up going too far.
Yeah.
You
It's
lost.
true.
And I think there is a process to learn about what boundaries are appropriate. Like, I think boundaries are needed in a dating relationship, and so I don't know what those boundaries are.
Come on,
it's been a minute.
You
I would
give
say,
some.
I mean, when we talk about making out, it's typically it's not in public, so
Right.
it's somewhere private.
Right.
You're typically not vertical, but you end up horizontal. Those are probably boundaries that you need to
So,
put in place.
Where it is.
Yeah, where it
and
is,
where what time it is, where your bodies are.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that desire is actually really good.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that you have that chemistry. It just needs to be put in context, and that's where I think I would really lean into the men, that they need to lead out in this, that they need to be the ones that have a vision for that relationship. And if you're dating someone, you should be dating them with intent to marry. And so if that's the goal, then there's a time and place where that's going to happen. And it's worth the wait. It's worth the wait. It's worth the fight to get to that finish line. Because those desires they're good and they're natural. And to me, it's a good sign that you have that, but what you do with it's important.
Amen. I think too, I would love for you guys to speak into this, but I feel like there's a weird thing in Christian culture. There's a lot of pressure on like the men to, like, he needs to lead, he needs to set the boundary, he needs to, but I also think actually in this area, I would say, like, as single men, that single men are weaker in this area than single women. Like, biologically, physiologically, they're weaker in this area. And I think that if you are a Christian woman, that one of the ways that you could honor the single man in your life is by, like, because once the engine is revved, it doesn't know how to go back to first gear. And I think that is a kindness and an honor that, like, single women can do by not allowing that engine to start.
Right.
Does that make sense? I'm trying to use language. I just think that is,
and making out is
starting the
turning
engine.
on
It's
ignition.
turning on the
Totally.
ignition, and you just don't, like, and females can go turn it off
Yep.
easily.
Yep.
But it's not the same, and it's unkind to turn on the ignition, even by things you say, ways you dress, that's unkind if you're expecting them to have self-control. You want to be someone who can help with that.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's really wise.
I think that was something that made me fall in love with you. Prior to dating Sarah Beth, I had a lot of, prior to coming to this community, I had gotten this very wrong just throughout life. And I felt like,
what do you mean?
Like I had a lot of sin,
Physical
physical
sin,
sin,
yeah.
and just relationships that had gone too far. And then I remember the Lord started dealing with it when I was a Bible school student, and I heard the Lord say this: I want you to be single until I tell you. And for me, I had my first kiss in 3rd grade. And then, so from 3rd grade up until this point.
Wow, Borger.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's all there was to do.
So until we started dating, it was about 3.5 years after the Lord said that to me. And I felt like just before we started dating, I felt the Lord said, you can date. And then it was maybe a couple months later we started dating. And you were the first girl I had ever dated that was so confident in boundaries and in purity. That
Good
for me,
thing,
you were really the first girl who had ever said, no, I'm not going to go down that path with you, but pursue me. Let's go on dates. I like you. There was this confidence about you that actually I think is what made me fall in love with you. this is now theory at this point, but had you said yes, I'll go down that, path
Yeah, it
or
would've been
whatever, which
real
hopefully
bad.
we wouldn't even, whatever. But I think I probably would have been like, nah, I don't.
We wouldn't
It would have
you wouldn't
stolen
valued
the
me as
desire
much?
to pursue. I probably wouldn't have
Yeah.
valued you as
Yeah.
much. But you saying no, you protecting the pearl that you knew you were,
Yes.
did something within me that went, I want to
Like
spend
she's
my life with
worthy
this
of
woman. She's worthy of
pursuing to the
pursuit.
finish
really
line.
good.
It almost invited me into a deep walking out the holiness I desired to.
Yeah.
Was tested now here in this relationship. But I remember too, that's the first thing I want to say. And then I don't know if you guys remember this, but we were talking our previous episode with you guys about being on the patio with you guys, and it was around physical boundaries for us.
We
were
had
sitting
gotten
there.
it wrong. Like, we didn't have sex, but we went too far.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you
the
came-
problem was you guys asked us that question, how far is too far? And we had different answers. You felt like we had gone too far. I felt like we hadn't. And again,
course.
different
Do you want
histories,
me to
different paths.
define?
No, really.
Well, you guys did have us defined. We needed help. I
Yeah,
remember
I'm
you
just
said,
kidding.
Sir Beth, define how far is too far. Aaron,
Basically,
define
it was
how far is too
making out
far.
for me. It was like, because then, like you said, you would be in a place of wanting more.
Yeah,
and
I was
more.
like, I'm
And
down
I
to
was
make out, and you were
"Ugh."
like, I don't think we
Yeah.
should make out.
Yeah.
And it was this biggest aha of, whoa, when we're saying how far is too far, we have different definitions. But now,
But you said
not
go with
only-
her definition.
Yeah,
that
not
night.
only
you were
did
like,
we
whatever
have-
she said, you go with that.
You did say that. But what helped me, and I think helped both of us, was it wasn't just me and you that now had a unified definition. We had a unified definition with
The four of
accountability,
us, right?
with authority, and
So when we got to the finish line, when we got to the wedding day, we all got to celebrate together because we knew
yeah,
that from that point on, we had kept
yeah,
boundaries. And I want to say too, if you've gone too far in a relationship, I'm sure a lot of people are listening that are like, man, I've already crossed the boundary. If I've had sex or whatever, like there's always confession, forgiveness, and restoration. Because I remember that night feeling like, oh, I don't get another go at this. I don't get, and I feel like the Lord just restored
Yeah,
our
that's really good.
purity.
Amen.
Where he was
Always.
like, it doesn't need to be restored. For me, it did.
Yeah.
And I feel like he really did. And on our wedding night, I didn't feel like, oh, I've been here before. Or, oh, although we didn't have sex, we had made out, we had been on top of each other, whatever. But on that night, he had restored us because we confessed to you guys. We were healed. Why are you smiling?
all I'm thinking about is your parents listening to this episode. I'm
I mean,
like,
true, but we have 3 kids, so it's fine.
you're right.
You're
right.
But I'm just saying, there is restoration for you. Like, it's not like, oh, you screwed it up forever.
Yeah.
Or else God wouldn't be God.
Yeah, because the shame
Yeah,
in
The
this
baggage.
area specifically is it's a terrible, terrible thing that
Yeah.
that repeats the cycle. And
Yeah, like
so-
you don't just flip a switch one day. For us, we had to confess, we had to be restored, and then marriage was beautiful. Our wedding night was beautiful. But like, if you are carrying that shame or that baggage into that marriage, it's not going to go away, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
Like it's not just going to be like, oh, great, no boundaries all of a sudden and we're great. You're going to have that shame unless you really bring it to the Lord.
Yeah, maybe I can share the first handlebar. We can go into handlebars
Yeah.
now for dating. Any point in this conversation, whether it's the wanting to be pursued or the boundaries with making out, and I'll hit the boundaries. I would say invite someone in. That was huge for us, and it was you guys. We invited you in, and it really helped us. I think it helped. For you, what you're talking about, you walked it out. You had the shame liberated. You're like, well, I've been in the light.
You don't have any
I'm not
shame?
hiding anything. Well, for me, what it did for me was it invited me into being above reproach.
Yeah.
And invited me into having a higher standard that I probably was a blind spot for me. That had been for me for most of my life. That now in a moment, I'm like, whoa, I need to come higher. Like it was a calling higher for me. And I don't think that would have happened had we not invited
Had we not been honest.
someone
Yeah.
in. I think it was the inviting in of authority leaders. It just set the foundation for us to run well
Finish
until
well.
we got to the finish
Yeah.
line of
Right.
getting married. And so that's going to be mine. If you're asking for boundaries and you don't know, sit down with a third party that can mediate, like, hey, let me help you with these boundaries, because I can think of how easy it is to say we're going to put these boundaries in place, but then you start revving the engine and
Yeah.
first thing to go is the boundaries, because you have no accountability around them. That's my handlebar for this episode on dating.
Lorisa?
I mean, I think I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm trying to make, how do I make this a handlebar? I'm just thinking for the women, for them, like for you to really know that you are a treasure, that your body is I'm thinking about, how you treated Sarah Beth, but now you have 2 daughters, and how you see them, what you want a young man to treat them like one day, and we have 2 daughters. So I'm thinking, like, for women, if you can really get a hold of your value in the Lord, then you won't allow someone to take what isn't theirs. And you can hold your ground in yourself. And there's an old saying, like, why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free, which is terrible because we're not cows. But you get the saying.
But the saying makes sense.
But the saying makes sense that God puts something in men that pursues to the finish line to gain the treasure that you are. And part of the treasure that you are is that you are a sexual being that can fulfill that desire. Yeah. And so knowing that you are a treasure, you are valuable, and you don't give that away. And if you have, then God, like Sarah Beth said, can restore it. But it's just going on the journey to discover I'm really valuable. And so I don't need to showcase my valuableness to the world with all that I wear and but like I have something precious that's reserved. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You're beautiful. That was
I knew you were gonna say that.
It's so good.
I love it.
I'll speak to men. I think a lot of young men, especially when it comes to this topic, they're broken sexually. There's with pornography, with our orientation into our sexuality, masturbation, those things oftentimes are not exposed. They're things that we've struggled with in a hidden place, and then when we get into a dating relationship, that girl may not know that brokenness is there, or that you have that history, but it shows up in that relationship, and not just sexually. It shows up in the relationship, how you view them. And so do the work now. Get help. Find older men that can speak into this area and get their eyes on this part of your life. For me, I lived with a lot of hidden sin, and when I would get into a dating relationship, that showed up. It was an X factor that I underestimated, and really did a lot of work in this relationship, getting healed. Lorisa was a major part of that healing for me, but so was a spiritual father that I confessed my sin to. I fully confessed all of my sin that I didn't want to share, sin that I had done even when I was 13, 14, 15, things that I hadn't fully reconciled to the Lord. I knew I was forgiven, but I wasn't fully healed. Yes. And it took me confessing those things, not for the Lord's sake, not for the mentor's sake, but for my sake, saying, hey, I am broken in this area. And I needed to acknowledge that. Yeah. And I think it's become so normative that pornography, sexual immorality, Ephesians 4 says don't have a hint of sexual immorality. And we have lived so far beneath this standard of Scripture, and we need help. We need God's grace. We need God's forgiveness, but we need the family of God to come around, young men specifically, and to be the Lord to those young men. Meaning, when I confessed my sin to that older man, I was so scared to do it, but he, with tears in his eyes, said, I love you all the more. I love that you've shared this part of your life with me. And it was a massive part of restoration in my soul, because I needed to receive that from a person. Yeah. I didn't just need to receive it in a service or alone with God. I needed to receive it from a father that I respected, that I felt like he was going to reject me, and he didn't. he actually drew near to me, and I received forgiveness from a father. And I think a lot of young men live hidden in this area. And Genesis 2:24, which is a really important scripture, but 2:25 is that Adam and Eve were naked and they knew no shame. And we need to get shame, sexual sin, shame is the fruit of that. And when we're transparent and honest with those people, I think it removes the shame and the pain from that past. It wasn't instantaneously and like, oh my gosh, I walked away from that meeting and I was, pure and holy and never struggled again. But he was a part of that journey in my life. And so finding those fathers, finding older people that you can invite into that is really important.
So good. I just keep having this thought, which this is kind of heavy, but I've talked to people who were under the illusion that having sex in a relationship and not married is okay. And I think I just want to say, like, it's not okay. And if the person that you're dating, whether it's the girl or the guy, whoever's like, it's both of you, but like, let's just say, for example, that your boyfriend is saying, well, it's okay because we're like, either get out of that relationship or go confess. I would just say, if you're living in sin, if you're having sex in a relationship and you're not married, go confess to someone, kind of like you said. But I think there can be this weird Christianese illusion of like, well, he loves me and he wants to be pure, but we just can't. And we're alone in his bed. And man, it's just, that road will lead to death. I remember, Peter Lewis said this one time. He was teaching in a residency class at Upper Room, and he said, if you go too far and you don't submit your life to leaders and you don't confess and you just bring that into marriage, you will reap the bad fruit of that. Like, you won't just switch over one day. So I just want to say, if you're in that place, be brave, go confess, cut off the relationship, whatever you need to do. Yeah. But sex outside of marriage is not. It is never right.
Not it.
Never okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's never okay. So.
Well, we love you guys. Thanks for being on the podcast with us.
Let's go.
Thanks for talking dating and boundaries and sex and all the stuff. So I hope this helps to every listener. Thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. We love to see your comments on how the podcast has encouraged you. If you want to ask a question, you can do that through our website, thehandlebarpodcast.com. We love you. We'll see you next time.
See ya.